building a better Bay Area for a safe and secure future. This is ABC 7 News.
This will be new for teachers and new for students.
There's a big learning curve for everybody.
I would hate to bring COVID to my classroom.
The distancing won't work, cleaning their hands. Maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't do it.
I'm feeling pretty good about distance learning.
It's been day to day all summer. Nobody's really known what to exactly prepare for.
Learning will still happen, just a little bit differently.
ABC 7 is committed to building a better Bay Area. This week, we are focusing on education and what back to school will look like for parents and students this fall. Thank you for being here with us. I'm Anna Dates.
Hi there, I'm Leanne Melendez, and today we're going to spend the next half hour talking with parents and teachers about what the school year may look like and how both can work together. Today we're talking with Teresa Arriaga with Parents for Public Schools, Jody DeSario, an English teacher at Willow Glen High School.
And Reginald Mosley is a parent, and Heidi Saratan is with Access SFUSD, the ARC, special education teacher and department head. So let's jump right in. I actually want to start with you, Jody, because we've been talking a lot about distance learning, parents working from home, everybody working from home, essentially. San Jose Unified, though, came up with this plan that teachers were going to go into their empty classrooms and teach from there without even the option of being able to work from home. And you were actually quoted in the Merc as saying it screams disrespect. We work very hard to do what's best for our students, and we don't feel like someone is working very hard to do what's best for us. Obviously, people are making tough decisions, but talk a little bit about the situation there.
Well, it's frustrating because we want to be in our classrooms. We want to be with kids, but we can't right now. It's not safe. And it's not safe for us to even be in an empty classroom because there's going to be 140 people on campus at any given time with teachers and staff. And then the teachers who are able to bring their kids in add a whole nother layer. So, shared restrooms, the office space where the photocopy machine and our mailboxes and the vending machines are, it's all still too tenuous.
Especially if people have underlying health conditions. You've been open in saying that you do.
I do.
So what is your situation? Are they at least giving you some leniency that maybe you won't have to go in?
Well, we had to do a pretty rigorous application process, and everything gets tied into the definition of disability under ADA. So I was granted a waiver so that I could work from home. But that doesn't change the fact that we're being inherently distrusted and treated as non-professionals by not having a choice at all.
So, Teresa, I want to ask you, as head of Parents for Public Schools, I'm sure you know more parents than most of us do. What are they saying about their children not returning to the classroom? I mean, New York City announced that the kids will be returning to in-person learning. Why can't the Bay Area? Why can't San Francisco?
I think while there are some parents who are still interested in having their children return to school, I think that what I heard and what came forward in a lot of the public town halls that were held by the district and other organizations was that first and foremost, families really wanted their kids to be safe, and that there was no assurance of that right now, especially with the climbing numbers in San Francisco. So, while we're disappointed that our kids can't go to school, as I said, I think most folks are understanding.
What about teachers? Are they also on the same page, or are they also divided? Regarding
is that to me? Oh,
yes, sure.
Oh, well, I can't. Just like parents aren't a monolith, teachers aren't a monolith. So I can't speak for all the teachers. I do know that we'll have some answers coming forward in terms of what's going to be happening.
I'd like to speak to Reginald. You have 3 small children. You have quite the hands full there. What is the situation for you? What keeps you up at night worrying?
The fact that there was some learning loss over the summer, there was even some learning loss in the last few months of school, but catching up, we do have a ways to go to catch up and still make progress for the year. So I want my children to get all the learning that they can throughout the school year. And distance learning for me, I am not a teacher, and my hat is off to teachers, but that's a hard job.
You've been very vocal, though, because you're in Oakland, you've been very involved in your children's education and helping to form Oakland's plan to reopen. Can you talk about that?
Yes, there's the strong start plan in Oakland, really starting with the K through 5, and somewhat different for the middle and high schools. But we're coming out with a plan that is going to be scheduled, and families have the option to move the schedule around to fit what's best for them. Attendance will be taken based on several criteria. Students are able to meet within the Zoom classes that are scheduled. If you can't, contact your teacher and let them know. But they can move the assignments around and work for what's best for the family and just turn that information in, get that equipment or the lessons turned in. OUSD is giving out technology to all those families who need it. So everyone should have the ability to actually get online and access the information for school when it starts.
Now, Heidi, we all love our teachers, but I always say that I have a special place in my heart for special education teachers. Now, how much harder will distance learning be for you and for your kids?
You know, I think so. I teach students between 18 and 22 with disabilities here in San Francisco, and we're traditionally a community-based program. So our program, the majority of the day, is working at places like San Francisco MoMA or Academy of Sciences, or taking classes with Haight Street Art Center. So trying to replicate a community site online is not super possible. We worked really intensely in the spring. We do have a high number of students who require one-to-one services. We have roughly 7 in our program of students who need one-to-one. So we have a very high number of paraprofessionals. And we were able to leverage my co-teacher and myself in being able to work one-on-one with the parents and work them through using Zoom and using Google Classroom. And we've really relied on the parents or their family members to be there to help them access the device, help them learn through muting, unmuting themselves, being able to enter and exit breakout rooms, being able to use the link from Google Classroom. So I think it really requires more of a partnership between the family and the teacher.
And can you quickly tell me what your main concern or concerns are?
My main concern is that we are going into the fall. I know we had drafts of or parts of the MOU shared with us today, but that we're going into the fall semester on a plane that's being built as we go along. Nobody wants to get on a plane that doesn't have a wing. And right now we feel like we're boarding a plane that's not ready to fly. We need to make sure that we have the resources to share with families and access to the online curriculums that we need and the platforms so that our students can be successful.
Okay, good analogy. And we want you to join in the conversation. Go to Facebook or YouTube to weigh in and interact in today's conversation. We're taking a break on air, but the conversation continues on our live streams right now.
Okay, we are back with our live stream. And actually, Heidi, I was hoping you could continue a bit. I'm curious, do you feel that there has been enough customization, consideration for special education programs as districts are trying to figure out the plan for the school year?
I can't speak, as you know, with special education, it's such a range of diverse services, from teachers that are RSP and supporting students completely in the general ed classroom to special day class teachers like myself, where I am the sole teacher of my students. I fear for some of the special day class, the RSP teachers that are going to be trying to be pulled in so many different directions, supporting large caseloads of up to 30 students in so many different classrooms, and looking how is that going to look. And we might see that instead of being more teachers, these students are going to, or teachers are going to have to be more of case managers, not as much in the classroom time, but more interacting with the students and their families and making sure that their needs are being met and that they're able to accommodate as much as they can for the assignments.
I wanted to ask Jody, the teacher from San Jose, are you ready to start online teaching, and how much preparation did you put in?
Well, I'm fortunate because I did distance learning like hardcore in the spring. I met with kids 4 times a week. I gave them choice board assignments. So I still have a lot of what I learned from then to build off of. But we're using a brand new learning management system, and it has not been easy for anyone. and the parents don't have access to it yet. So
still a learning curve that we're going to be seeing as we all head back.
Yeah, maybe you could teach other teachers as well.
That's a good point. Yeah, be a resource for each other. Okay, so we are continuing this conversation. I don't really want to launch another question because we're going to come right back out, and I hate cutting people off. So we are going to pause right here. We're going to come back out on air in just a moment, and then we will continue this conversation.
Sounds good.
I do hope that distance learning will be a fun and positive experience for all parents and children and teachers. What I actually think it might be like is a learning curve for everybody.
I'm feeling pretty good about distance learning. My district has put some things in place, has given us some professional development on certain tools.
I really hope this year brings a lot of learning. There's a big learning curve for everybody.
We're back. Great discussion. Reginald, I wanted to ask you today, San Francisco Unified announced it has agreed with teachers to give them 2 hours maximum, perhaps a little bit more if they decide, but 2 hours of live instruction. Now, as an Oakland parent, do you think that's enough, and what would you like to see?
I don't think that's enough, but it's basically an agreement between how families feel, parents feel, and teachers. Me personally, with 3 children, 2 hours, and then I take over as the instructor, that's quite a bit upon me. And I can basically get nothing done once my children are away from their classrooms and away from their teachers.
I hear you. Jody, could I ask you as a teacher that same question? Is 2 hours, is that enough?
I don't think so. I think, though, if you look at how that time is being broken down, so if I have 3 classes in the day and they're all 105 minutes, probably a third of that is going to be group and independent work. So it's not, I don't know if that counts as part of what I'm doing. I mean, I'm still there. But yeah, no, I have an 8th grader, and I don't think I'd be okay with that short of amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Teresa, I'd like to bring you back into the conversation. I know here we are, August. A lot of plans have already been made for how the school year is going to start. What services at this point can you still provide parents as they navigate this time?
Great question. So at Parents for Public Schools, we just launched last night a distance learning series, and I know we're not alone in the nonprofits in San Francisco to be offering opportunities for families to learn how best to support their children. So our work has been around helping families understand what's coming out from the district, breaking down the distance learning plan into sort of bite-sized chunks because it was a big document, which we'll also be doing when the more detailed guide comes out, but also putting parents into small groups so they can help each other. What's worked for my family? What's worked for your family? How can we do this at home? And we were doing that in not only in English, but in Spanish and Chinese. I also know that the city is offering community learning hubs, which will offer in-person supports for a smaller group of students. And there are other nonprofits that are working together to try to be able to offer families the resources that they need to really try to do this in some ways on their own.
Is there one thing that you're hearing is the biggest concern from families at this point?
Well, I think a big concern for families is just the logistics of it. So how am I going to make this work? So even though we know that that our district and their labor partners have come to some agreement, and you mentioned that there'll be at least 2 hours a day of learning, synchronous learning. There'll be more learning, not just necessarily live learning, but we don't know what time. So school starts a week from now, and we don't know what time of day our kids are going to need to be online. We don't know if we have multiple children, like Reginald. Are they all going to be on at the same time? How's that going to work? Teachers who are also parents, like trying to juggle those schedules. So I think that's a big concern for families in terms of their education. I mean, again, families have lots of different kinds of needs, but in terms of this, just being able to manage our lives as well as our kids' education is something that's going to be super challenging.
I wanted to go back to Heidi. You know, this is something you don't always think about, but it's true. I mean, you go into a classroom, let's say when you finally go back to that hybrid mode, in-person learning, a lot of teachers complain that they don't have, for example, toilet paper, or they won't have paper towels. And you're telling your kids constantly to wash your hands. So is that a true concern with you, for your students and among other teachers?
Absolutely. I think every school site is so different. In our particular site, we're very small. We have 20 students who are 18 to 22. So right there, they're already adults who are at just as high a risk of any other adults for infection and passing through. We have one bathroom at our site, and we have approximately 15 staff. So that's a lot of people using one bathroom sink. The hand sanitizer that we have an amazing administrator who works out of central office and does everything she can to get us the resources we need, but we still rely heavily on wish lists from parents for things like hand sanitizer or Lysol wipes. So I think just that cleanliness and working with the population of students with more significant disabilities, a lot of, there's a lot of more bodily functions and things that are containing contaminants that we experience on a daily basis, helping students with restrooms, helping students with their nutritional needs. So definitely, I think we also have a site with 0 windows. So when you think about we need to have windows open and air flowing, we have a front door off Howard Street in San Francisco, which for safety reasons, we can't leave open, being in this SOMA district. So right off the bat, thinking about our site and just spatially how we could make students maintain safe distances while navigating not having consistent airflow through our site. And also just spatially, we have a number of students who have physical impairments that use wheelchairs or walkers, and just navigating the narrow hallways and just logistically seems very challenging.
Yeah, just another level added on to everything else. All right, we are going to continue our conversation. What could school look like in the fall at any grade level? Go to abc7news.com for an interactive look and to get some of your back-to-school questions answered. We'll be right back.
And we're continuing the conversation. Teresa, I wanted to ask you about learning pods. Is that something that you hear parents are doing? A lot of parents, is that the solution?
So I am hearing that some parents are doing learning pods, and but I will acknowledge that pods has become kind of a loaded word. So there's a whole range of what that could mean. So there are families who are hiring outside help to help their families, teachers and tutors and such. There are folks who are looking for just socialization for their children. And then there are a lot of families that are really looking to how can we do this in an equitable way. So what I've really observed is there's been a shift from this thinking of, well, I'm just going to take care of my own kids, which can you blame a parent, right, for wanting to do what they can for their own children, but also realizing like the broader impact on public education. And so it's been really wonderful to see families begin to come together and say, okay, how can we do this in a way that doesn't exacerbate existing inequities in our city?
Reginald, was a pod even an option for you? You have 3 little ones. Let's see, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders, I believe?
Yes, that's correct. While OUSD and teachers do not support pods, they have provided a space at our school, Montclair Elementary, for parents to collaborate if they wanted to go in that direction. So on our website, which is called Member Hub, parents can go into rooms and just have discussions on what they would like to do as far as pods. And yes, it is an option for me. I believe in what Teresa just mentioned about the inequities that are taking place, but as a parent, you do want to take advantage of every opportunity to make sure that your child is in a learning situation. And for me, if a pod is going to help with that, I am researching that to see if it's good for us.
All right, we have about 15 seconds. I just want to ask your kids, do they want to go back to school, or are they wanting to stay home and learn?
No, they want to go to school. They don't want to be home with me.
All right, let's hold here. We're going to come back out on air in just a moment.
I hope the school year could be kind of a normal year where students can meet each other, discuss things with each other, and be in the classroom.
I'm feeling nervous and excited to distance learn again.
We have to really get creative about not only how we teach, but how we connect with communities.
Now that we've had the summer to regroup and reflect on the teaching that had happened or didn't happen as you had planned, that I think the teachers are going to be more thoughtful in their delivery of lessons.
And welcome back. I want to put this out to the group, and whoever feels comfortable answering this, please do so. I've noticed that the issue of distance learning and COVID has pitted some teachers against parents. In fact, I know some parents have even told me that they wanted a hybrid mode for their children because they thought that their schools were prepared. They were equipped with the proper equipment. But when they voice that their kids want to go back, then they find people saying or calling them teacher killers. I mean, why? And I guess the question is, at what point did we become a society here in the San Francisco Bay Area where we can't even agree to disagree? I'm just going to.
Well, I think everything is. I'm sorry. Everything is really charged right now. Mm-hmm. Every feeling that we feel is coming at us about 20 times harder. And so, yeah, people have different opinions. People think, and they feel very strongly. There's usually very little in the middle of the road stuff. But, we're all just trying to do the best that we can for the kids.
Yeah. Anybody else hearing that? Go ahead.
Yeah. When I think of students, I think students and all children, I have a 4-year-old, they do best and they thrive when there's structure and a plan and clear expectations. And teachers don't have that right now, and parents don't have it. And so I understand we're a 2-teacher household. Both my husband and I work for San Francisco Unified, and trying to balance our schedule with a 4-year-old, while I don't want her on Zoom 2 hours a day, because that's too much for someone her age, it can't be a one-size-fits-all approach for students pre-K through 12. I see this divide. I see it in the Facebook groups between educators and parents, and it seems like so much of an us versus them, but we need to figure out how to leverage each other's support and how to be compromising. Distance learning, we can't make apples out of oranges. We can't turn what we did in person to exactly the same as what we did online, but it's an opportunity to find new ways to engage students in different kinds of skills that we wouldn't be doing traditionally if we were on site. And I think it's just about finding, as I think someone said, there's different ways for a student to have attendance a certain day, and being accommodating of families, that not everyone has someone there to get their kid engaged and online. And when their workday's over and your workday's over, like for me at the end of the workday, I don't maybe want to do preschool homework for another hour after I've been juggling work and my daughter all day. And I think teachers being accepting, and parents too, I think it's just coming to a common ground of, we're working through a pandemic and we're all surviving. We're all doing our best, and knowing that teachers want more than anything to be back in the classroom with your kids, because they're our kids. We love them. And we wouldn't be here if we didn't. And try to take this with a resiliency lens and look at how can we teach our young students to be resilient and bounce back from this? How can we teach them new skills and look at reevaluating things that we've done in the classroom? What are some different opportunities that we can provide our students? And I think really being understanding and for parents that maybe don't always have the resources that they need. And I like Reginald said, you can't always be there the whole time. And if you have 3 kids, so that's a challenge that we need to be understanding and be willing to work with families, and know that families are all at different places on the amount of time that they can be spending with their kids while still working and providing and getting a roof over the heads of their families.
All right, we're going to take a break on air right now, but this conversation continues on our live streams right now.
So I believe that we will be engaged in distance learning at least through December.
This will be new for teachers and new for students to start off the school year, not having established relationships.
But even more than teaching, our job in a pandemic is to keep our students and families and communities safe.
I'm excited to make sure that our students actually have a fun time learning, considering what's been going on.
All right, so we are back with our panel. I wanted to hopefully just kind of get some last thoughts from everyone. Maybe if you could sum up in a word or a sentence your feelings as we go forward for the school year, whether it's hopeful, overwhelmed. I know, I'm putting you on the spot to choose one. Reginald, let's start with you.
Hopeful, yes. I worked on a panel that helped shape what school looks like for the fall. And we came up with several different phases. So as COVID gets better, we can slowly move children and families back into the classroom, take the fear out as best as we can, take the fear out of the equation and just work the issue to assist our students in learning.
All right, Teresa.
I hate to be repetitive, but I'll say that I'm both hopeful and nervous. I'm hopeful that distance learning will be better than it was in the spring. People were trying really hard, and there was talk about what Heidi was saying about building the plane as you go along, right? So I think I'm really hopeful for that. I'm also hopeful that we can figure out how to work together as a community. So some of the questions you asked before, our parents are in all different spaces in terms of the resources available to them, the time that they have, their own experiences with education. And I just really hope that we can come together to be able to support our kids.
Yeah. Okay, Jody.
I'm a drama teacher, so my first instinct is naturally a musical theater reference. I'm excited and scared. I'm really loving the idea of being able to teach skills that aren't just academic. I get to teach them how to format documents, how to do really relevant research. We're going to be creating, but I'm really afraid it might go wrong.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have about 20 seconds. Heidi, you're our last one.
I'd say creativity and just knowing that we're looking at new ways to engage students, looking at ways we can bring the community into our Zooms to have our students access that, and knowing that our energy feeds to them. So if we show that we're willing to be flexible and accommodating and calm, then our students will hopefully be the same.
Okay, raise your hand. How many people are having anxiety dreams?
I'm raising my hand too.
It's a real thing.
All right, stay with us. All right, we want to thank our panel of experts for taking time out of their busy schedules today to talk with us and with you. Such a great conversation we had on our last day of our Back to School Education Week, Leanne.
Absolutely. And thank you to all our viewers for spending time with us this week. You can learn more about the issues on abc7news.com and on ABC7 News app. Now, all week long, we spoke with experts in education, leaders in child development, families, and teachers. On Monday, we discussed preschools. Tuesday, it was about elementary schools. Then middle and high schools